Hey everybody, my name is Jay.
And I'm Tracy, and together we lead the South Orange County Church.
We want to welcome you to our Connect video series, where we talk about what it means to be a follower of Jesus and what that looks like in our everyday lives.
One of our core convictions as a church is that it's good to start every week, setting aside time for God and His people. So all over South Orange County today or sometime over the weekend, we have small groups meeting to discuss the very things that we're going to talk about today. And we'd love for you to become a part of one of those groups. So listen all the way to the end so that you can find out how to do that.
That's right. So grab a cup of coffee and your journal. Let's get started. All right, welcome back. So if you're new to our video series here, in our church for the last 4 months, we've been talking about basically the beginning of the early church. What happened after Easter when Jesus was crucified and then resurrected, and then he appeared to many of his followers and taught them, and then at the day of Pentecost, the new church began. And so there's so many things that happened in those early days of the church. And then in those early years of the church, as the disciples were all trying to figure out how do we work together and how do we get this church to work together and who agrees and how do we deal with, so many cool stories. And so we've been talking about a lot of that for the last several months. But as we head into the fall, we're actually going to change our conversation and start talking about something a little bit different.
Which is perfect timing because the fall is actually the head of the spiritual year.
Right.
From our Jewish ancestry,
Right.
Rosh Hashanah is supposed to be the head of the year, the spiritual new year.
Right.
And so God is kind of calling everybody to renew. So we're gonna do something new. You know, looking back at all that we've studied has been very, very good and very much about the church. But now as we go into the fall, we want to change it a bit and go into, but what about you? Or what about me? What does it mean for me to personally follow Jesus?
Right. And so when we start thinking about, okay, when Jesus came on the scene, what was going on? Kind of what was the picture? What was the setting there? And what was happening in the Jewish community at that time was when the kids, their education system, when the kids would get old enough to start going to school, they would come in and basically in their elementary school years, they would be learning the Old Testament, they would be learning the Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, and they did that by memorizing it. So they memorized every single word of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. All 5 of those books, which, that's crazy because some of us don't even have the names of the first 5 books of the Bible memorized, much less what was inside them, right? But they would memorize the first 5 books of the Bible. And then many of them would stop school and they would go on and start working for their family, or some of them were even at the age to get married and something like that. But then those who were really great students, the best of the best, they would go on for another round of schooling, which would then take them through memorizing the rest of the Old Testament scriptures. So the rest of they had the Old Testament memorized. Now, obviously, it was a different culture, it was a different time, a different way of learning things. But through that type of learning and through that memorization, that the story got so deeply in their heart, and then they could remember when Jesus was telling stories or telling parables, it reminded them of scriptures that they had known since they were a kid, from the prophet Isaiah or from the Psalms or from the stories in Exodus. They could remember back to what he was talking about and what he meant. When he said the Son of Man, they were like, oh, no, I know the passages about the Son of Man. And everything started to make sense to them. And so that would happen kind of up through your middle to late teenage years was when that was going on. And then most people, then they would finish that schooling, they would go on and start working for their parents. But the best of the best they then at that point were called to become a disciple of a rabbi. A rabbi would invite them and say, I see something in you. I believe that you have what it takes to be a spiritual leader or to be a rabbi, and I want you to follow me. And he would invite them to follow him. And so then they would follow their rabbi. They would learn how he thought. They would watch how he dealt with people. They would listen to the way that he talked with people. They would listen to his teachings over and over and his discussions about the Torah. They would try to begin to anticipate even how he was going to react to a situation so that they could react in the same way. And there was even a famous Jewish blessing at the time, which went something like this: may you be covered in the dust of your rabbi. And so the idea is that as you are following your rabbi, that you're going to walk so closely behind him that the dust that gets kicked up from his sandals covers you by the end of the day. And that was considered a good thing. to be covered by the dust of your rabbi. And so when you think about that whole context, when you think about what was going on there, and then we start to look at when Jesus was calling his first disciples, it kind of puts it into a different picture or a different perspective for us. And so that's what we want to look at today. If we look at Mark chapter 1 and verse 16, it says, as Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. And at once they left their nets and they followed him. When he'd gone a little farther, he saw James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John in a boat preparing their nets. Without delay, he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men and followed him. So here we have this picture of Jesus walking along the shore and seeing the guys that he wanted and saying, come follow me. And immediately they left their nets and their boats. They even left their dad and were like, we're going. We're totally going to follow Jesus here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing that really sticks out to me first about this passage, and I'm sure now that you hear the context of what it took to follow a rabbi, not everybody got asked. So the first thing that pops out to me is just that all of these guys were working with their with their dad, or on their own boat. So we know that they weren't exactly the best of the best.
Right.
Like they didn't make the cut. I don't know how long ago, but they didn't move into that, spiritual arena. And I just think about how that must have felt. Like, surely not me. Are you sure? Looking around kind of like, who's he calling? Because we're obviously not the smart guys. We're not the spiritual guys. And I think that's like kind of the biggest eye opener about Jesus and how different he was.
Right.
He was going to do things differently than the religious system that they knew in their day. Mm-hmm. He was going to do something different. He was going to call everyone. And it wasn't going to be based on how spiritual you were. And it wasn't going to be based on your pedigree or where you came from or anything. It was going to be based on what he saw in you. Right. He was there to call all of us normal people. Unschooled, ordinary men is actually how they are described later. And that's just such a, it gives me hope. Right. It gives me hope that I don't have to be something that I'm not. Mm-hmm. Jesus still wants me to follow him.
Absolutely. And so this is the call for all of us, is that we get the opportunity to be a disciple of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. We get the opportunity to follow Jesus. We don't have to work for it to be able to get into his inner circle. He's extending this invitation to all of us to want to be like him. Mm-hmm. And what a beautiful thing that is. And so many of you have accepted that invitation. Like you remember when you got called. You remember when Jesus reached out to you and where God plucked you out of the life that you were living and said, I want you to live differently. Many of you remember that time where you turned your life over and you said, okay, I'm going to stop living this way and now I'm going to start living for Jesus. And now that years have gone by, and now you're trying to look at it and go, okay, am I still following him in that way? Do I still have that passion or that desire to really want to follow him? Others of you maybe are just brand new in your walk or your exploration of God and who God is, and you're trying to figure. You've heard a lot about Christianity, you've heard a lot about God, maybe you've heard some things about Jesus, and then you listen to people that claim to follow Jesus, and you're not sure how all of that fits together and how all of that works. But here's the thing: is that this is an invitation to all of us, no matter where we are in that journey. Mm-hmm. This is an invitation to all of us to learn how to be like Jesus, to learn what it means to follow him, to learn what that looks like in our everyday life. Mm-hmm. And so this is what Jesus wants us to be able to dig into.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that strikes me about this passage is, here's Jesus inviting us, not based on our merit, not based on our worth, not based on who we are, but just based on him. He's inviting us to follow him, but it does require something of them. They had to go. They had to follow. They had to get out of the boat. I mean, first it says at once they dropped their nets and followed him because they saw the honor. They saw, this is a chance of a lifetime. Right. But honestly, when I first started studying the Bible or got, acquainted with Jesus, I didn't really see the need. I mean, I really didn't get out of the boat. I was like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm in here. Because I don't think I saw the need. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's started thinking about, well, what causes me to actually move? What causes me to actually get out of the boat? Because we can stay in our situation based on fear. What are other people going to think of me? Or what would it mean? What's out there? What I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen out there, but I know my own misery.
Right.
I'm comfortable in the misery that I'm in.
Right.
The only time I've ever been willing to get out of the boat is when I get sick and tired of being sick and tired. When I'm just like, my best thinking got me here. I need somebody else. I need somebody else's thinking.
Right.
I need Jesus's thinking. I need to do something different.
Right.
And I feel like that this has happened to me multiple times. And as you're watching this, I don't know what state of life you're in. It could be that somebody sent you this video and you're like, I hate church. I hate being a part. I don't believe in, organized religion. And the truth is really no religion is very organized. So I'm gonna bust that one open right there. But I don't believe it. I mean, I've said all those same things. I totally know how that feels. But how is your life?
Right.
How are you feeling right now? I was thinking about how I just get to this point when I have not been, obedient to Jesus or following him, or I've become distant from him, and just the stuff that creeps up, the stuff I don't feel good. I usually don't feel good about myself. I don't feel, there's fighting in our families, and there's, in my own mind, there's arguments going on all the time. And, just that feeling, or when we know how it feels when you've let yourself go and you don't even fit into your clothes anymore, or whatever it is. You get to this point where you're like, I need something new. That happened to me before I'd even gotten baptized, and it's happened to me repeatedly since I've been trying to follow Jesus. I'll find myself back in that same boat. Right. Like I don't want to get out, or I don't see the need, or whatever it is. And I think this is why this scripture is applicable to everyone.
And this is why we wanted to talk about this idea of really what it means to follow Jesus, what it means to be covered in the dust of our Rabbi, what it means to know this is how he spoke to people and how he responded to people. And every day I want to become more like that. Following Jesus is not the same thing as membership in a church.
Right.
You can be a member of a church, but actually not follow Jesus in the way that you're living. Yeah. And to be honest, some of us in the South Orange County Church, we may be on the membership roll, and you may watch these videos every week, and you may come to our midweek services, but there may not be a passion in your heart to become like Jesus. Sometimes even over the last year, we've been talking, we'll come to certain times when we talk about, okay, we want to help us. It's time to look inward. It's time to repent of what is going on in our hearts that's keeping us from being like him. And I'll actually feel like people are rolling their eyes when I bring up this concept of really focusing on becoming more Christ-like. And people will roll their eyes because that doesn't seem like what they want the church to be doing.
Or maybe the eyes of their heart.
Maybe they don't roll their outward eyes, right? Maybe it's the inward eyes, but I can feel the roll of the eyes. It's just there's a resistance sometimes to go, I need to change. I want to change anything about me.
Right.
Anything about me that is not like Jesus. Any way that I respond that is less than humble or completely gentle. Anything about me that does not consider the needs of others. And even in our culture, in this South Orange County culture that we're in, not the church culture, but just the broader culture, there's such a feel of I have to take care of myself. I'm going to take care of my family, and I want to find things that actually fit me. I'm going to find the health club that actually works the best for me and my family, and the one that gives us the best deal. I'm going to find the country club that has the best golf course and the best restaurant, and then I can get the best deal at, and it will impress my friends the most. I'm going to find, maybe the beach to go to that is absolutely the best. I'm going to find the things that make my life really the best. And then we can look at our church the same way. Well, my church should suit me in this way. It should serve my family in this way. And if it doesn't, then I'm not going to give myself to it. This is an attitude that is not like Jesus. Jesus had an attitude of, what can I do to help? How can I give of myself to help other people? And there is an un-Christ-like spirit that can run through not just our church, but many churches, all churches. So church membership does not equal discipleship. And so who I'm trying to talk to today are those of you that want to know what it means to follow Jesus. whether you're on the membership roll or not, do you want to know what it means to follow him, to learn to be like him, speak like him, think like he did? And this is what we're going to be talking about for the next few weeks, for the next couple months, is just learning what it means to get out of the boat and go, okay, Jesus, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to be? How do you want me to speak? How do you want me to act? And we're going to lean into that.
This reminded me of a story.
Oh,
Can I
good.
tell a story?
Yeah, let's hear it.
So I was riding in my car the other day, going to the grocery store with my daughter, and we encountered something that was less than kind from the car that was in front of us.
Okay.
A certain sign and yelling coming our way, you know. And of course my daughter, she's having none of it. She's like, what? I'm gonna get out of the car. She's like, I'm gonna get out there, get that person a piece of my mind, you know. She's a feisty little one. And I was like, no, we're not gonna do that, you know. So I'm like, you know, calming the whole situation down, and she's like, why don't you get out there? And I was like, I know, I want to, but like, I'm a serious Jesus follower. So I don't do stuff like that. You know, like, so just this concept in everyday life of, because I follow Jesus, I don't even act like I want to act. I don't do what I want to do. I don't, go where I want to go. I don't pick a church based on what they have to offer me. I follow Jesus. I'm a serious Jesus follower, and I try to interact with people who are giving me a certain sign and some unpleasant language as Jesus would. That's what it is. Day in, day out, walking along the side of the road, driving in your car with your family, doing whatever it is that you do, really trying to say, okay, what would Jesus do? I want to do that. I want to be covered in the dust of my Rabbi, Jesus.
Right.
You know,
So for the next few weeks, we invite you on this journey to start this discussion about what it means to follow Jesus and what that looks like in our everyday life. And we hope that you will come with us. We hope that you'll come with us on this journey and do the work, do the internal work and the honest observation of yourself, and take the courageous steps
to get out of the boat.
to get out of the boat and really be able to follow him and be covered in the dust of your Rabbi. So thanks for sticking with us today. We do hope that you'll come back. If you want to find out more about us, about our church, you want to get involved in one of our small groups, you can send us an email at socchurch@occhurchofchrist.com. That's socchurch@occhurchofchrist.com. We would love to help you get connected. We also are starting this week, we are starting a great series called Making Marriage Simple. So if you are married or you know somebody that is, that you think could benefit from it, our first session is going to be sometime this week. We're going to have classes different times during the week. And so you just let us know, and we will try to find a time that works for you. But it's going to be really great. There's a great book that we're going through, and it's going to help those of us who are married to really engage well. I know that many of our singles are going through a book called 1,000 Gifts, which is really helping them get deeper in their understanding of gratitude and living with gratitude, which is really great too. So I'm excited about that. There's just a lot of cool things going on this fall, and that we're excited about. So thank you for being with us today, and we'll see you next week.